Hello, good morning everyone. How are you? Well, first of all, I would like to welcome you all to join in Statistics and Data Analysis course at IPB University. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Budi Susetio. I am a lecturer in Department Statistic of IPB University. I am assigned by Department of Statistics to teach this class this semester for 14 meetings in 14 weeks. The topic of our class in the first week today is the basic concept of statistics. Outline that we will discuss today include understanding of what and why of statistics, definition of population and sample, descriptive statistics and inference, and definition of variable, types of variables, and measurement scale. After following this topic, I hope you all can explain how decisions are often based on incomplete information, can explain about what statistic and why use statistics, explain key definition, difference between population versus sample, difference between parameter versus statistic, descriptive statistic and inferential statistic, and understanding and description about random sampling, and explain the difference between descriptive and inferential statistics, and also explain variables, type of variables, and measurement scales. As you see in these figures, in the next few slides, we will discuss how important statistics are in everyday life by everyone, by institutions, as well as by countries. Consciously or unconsciously, all of us, whoever, whether as individual or institution, always produce data. For example, when you study or read books, you generate data. And how many hours you read per day, for example. What kinds of books you read. How many books you read. And many other data that can be recorded. Another example, the picture, for example, when you sleep, even you generate data. What time do you sleep? How many hours? What time do you wake up? And so on. So that means every activities you conducted every time you produce data, right? Not only individual generate data, as I mentioned earlier, institutions or offices also produce data. For example, how many employees how many are male and female, and lots of other data in an office. Another example, in a hospital, for example. The hospital produces data, the number of doctors, the number of nurses, genders, the number of patients, the number of patients who die and recover per day, and many others data produced by hospitals. In Ministry of Education and Culture, for example, too, produce data, for example, on the number of schools, the number of teachers, the number of students, the number of laboratories on average in every schools, the number of students drop out, and average test scores, and many other available data in this Ministry of Education and Culture, for example. In the larger scope, for example, at the country level, at the national level, each country also produce data, even classified as a big data. For example, population data, economics data, social data, agriculture data, education data, and so on. Okay, after my explanation earlier, the important things that we need to understand about the data are: data is available everywhere, right? And then data is all around us. Do you agree? And data need to be utilized. But the important thing that we must understand is that the data, to be useful, it must be processed. Without any processing of the data, it is not useful as information. Right? Do you understand with this? Okay. Now let's discuss about the use of data for our daily life. I think we understand that the human life is inseparable from problem, right? Everybody has problems. But don't forget that the data is used to solve the problem. Without data, we cannot solve the problem. Do you agree with this? Okay, as individual problem as well as institutional problem. Even in the greater scale, solutions to problem will create policies. For example, at country level. And then policies will be right on target if they are based on the right data. The question is, how use the data for that? The answer is we need statistics as tool for doing that process. Take a look at the schematic in this slide. We have a problem, and then we investigate the problem, or we observe the problem. After that, we collect or we generate data, And then based on this data, we will find a solution. But to take solution, we need statistics that I will explain to you later on. Alright, it is time now to get into the topic of what statistics are. There are many statistical definitions from various textbooks. Maybe the definition of statistics is different based on textbooks, but actually the various definitions have the same meaning. Here are two definitions of statistics. The first one is statistics is science of collecting, organizing, presenting, analyzing, and interpreting data to assist in making more effective decisions. Is it clear? Please read again. Yeah. Science of collecting, organizing, presenting, analyzing, and interpreting data to assist in making more effective decisions. The second definition of statistics based on Agresti 2018, statistics is the art of science of designing studies and analyzing the data that those studies produce. Its ultimate goal is translating data into knowledge and understanding of the world around us. In short, statistics is the art and science of learning from data. Again, in short, statistics is the art and science. Art and science, combination between art and science of learning from data. But it is also important to explain to you. You have to understand that statistical applications are based on probability statement. The next question is the reasons why we need to study statistics. A good question, right? So, the first one, normally we don't have population data. We just have subset of population data. We call it sample. From this sample data, statistics can give a valid information about the whole population. This is the first reason. Another reason, sometimes we need to predict even in the future based on the past data, based on the previous data, for example. So meaning statistics, we need to study statistics to know about what happened in the past, can help answer questions about the present and the future. For predictions in the future even, based on probability, of course, right? There are 4 components in statistical problem solving. First, formulating statistical questions. Second, collecting data. Third, analyzing data, and the fourth, interpreting the result of data analysis. And now come up with the questions why we use statistical method. The reason for using statistical method. There are three main components of statistical for answering questions. The first one is design, stating the goal and or statistical questions of interest. Sometimes we call it hypothesis. After that, planning how to obtain data that will address them. After that, description, meaning summarizing and analyzing the data that are obtained, that you collected. And then inference. What is inference? This is making decision and prediction based on the data or answering the statistical questions. Okay, is it clear? Before we continue with the next slides, talking about statistical method, let's talking first about definition of some understanding of the statistics, part of statistic, namely understanding of population, sample, parameter, and statistic. Population is a collection of all items or all objects of interest or under investigation. Normally we represent with large N. This is population size. For example, you define all students under IBB University in year 2021, for example, as a population, meaning that you have number of students of IBB University in 2021. Student in 2022 is not a population of interest that you want to investigate. And then what is sample? Sample is an observed subset of population. Subset. You understand subset of population. That means sum of population. Represent with small or little n. This is sample size. For example, we have 10,000 students as a population, and then you take some of the 10,000 of students, for example 1,000, randomly. This is sample. And then what about parameter? Parameter is a specific characteristic of a population. Okay, remember population and parameter. Population is object and parameter is characteristic of a population. For example, average of the weight of population. This is parameter. But sometimes we don't know parameter, or we don't have parameter, because we don't have the data for all individual of population. So that we have to calculate this on sample data. And then we call it statistic. That means statistic is specific characteristic of sample as an estimator of parameter. Okay? Statistic is a parameter estimator. Be careful with statistics with S. This is different with statistic. Statistics and statistic, big difference. In bahasa Indonesia, statistics is ilmu statistika. Statistika. Statistic without S is statistic. A specific characteristic of sample. Okay, be careful with that. As I mentioned earlier, statistics is science, combination of science and art. But statistic is a parameter estimator. Right? Clear? Okay. This slide shows us easier understanding of population versus sample and parameters versus statistic. Population, you can look at here, is collecting of the objects under our interest, and then sample is sum of the population. Of course, the population size is bigger than the sample size, and then based on the population's data, you can calculate, and then you will get parameters. And then from sample data, you calculate something or value, mean, for example, median, or standard of deviation, then you call statistic. Again, statistic is estimator of parameter. Okay. This is examples of populations and parameter. For example, we have population, names of all registered voters in the United States, names of all students of IBB University, for example. And then from populations, and then we calculate, and then we get parameters. For example, incomes of all families living in Daytona Beach, annual returns of all stocks traded on the New York Stock Exchange, grade point average of all students in your university, for example, average of the midterm tests, all students in IBB University, for example. So this is parameter, so the characteristic of the population. Okay. There are many procedures on method to choose sample from population. In this slide, we just talk about random sampling. Simple random sampling, defined as a procedure in which each member of population is chosen strictly by chance. Each member of population is equally likely to be chosen, and every possible sample of an object is equally likely to be chosen. So if we take a sample like this procedure, we call it sample random or random sample. Okay. There are many other procedures, but we don't talk all of procedure in this course. This is just understanding of the simple random sampling. Now come up with the next topic, descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. In some statistics textbook, statistic is divided into two branches, namely descriptive statistic and statistic. Descriptive statistic using graphic, table, or number to get information from the data, while inferential statistics provide the basis for prediction, forecast, and estimates that are used to transform information into knowledge. That means inferential statistics include testing of hypotheses and parameter estimate, while in descriptive statistics is just showing the information from the data through graphic, table, and so on. Well, take a look at the graph in this slide. From population, and then you take the sample using sampling technique, and then from the sample you will get the data, and then based on the data sample, and then you describe with the descriptive statistics. But sometimes you have to take inference statistics. For what? For estimate parameters that you don't know. So in the estimator of parameters, you will have level of confidence. This is a part of statistical inference. So with this picture, you can imagine what relationship between population, sample, and then statistical sampling technique, and then based on this data, and then you can describe the data with the statistic description, and then you can also use the inferential statistic to test hypothesis or to predict parameter with the level of certain confidence. Okay. This slide shows the description of statistic. For example, you have graphical approach, table, or just numerical calculation, simple calculations, while statistical inference, you estimate the parameters, you test hypotheses, and so on. Very different between descriptive statistics and statistical inference. You can see here from the sample data, you can describe with pie chart with some colors. You can also show with the table with some explanation as a segment or category, and the number of the frequency every category. So this is also the method of the descriptive statistic. This is also another way to describe the data through descriptive statistics. If you have numerical data, for example, and then from this numerical data, you make a summary, describe about the minimum of the data, maximum, mean, median, modus, variance, and standard deviation. This is just example of the statistic descriptive if you have the numerical data. Inferential statistics includes two main things, namely estimations and hypothesis testing. Estimation, for example, estimation per capita income of the Indonesian populations. Why we estimate the parameter? Because we don't have the data for all Indonesian population. We just have the sample data. Another thing is hypothesis testing. Is testing the assumption that per capita income of Indonesian population is more than 3 million per month, for example. This is hypothesis. We don't know this hypothesis is correct or not. Therefore, we have to test based on the data from sample. Another example of inferential statistic is in estimating of the population mean weight using the sample mean weight. And in hypothesis testing, we test the claim that the population mean weight is 120 pounds, for example. This is also another example of inferential statistics. So we can conclude that inference is the process of drawing conclusions or making decisions about a population based on sample result, based on sample data, and then we take conclusion or make a decision about characteristic of the population. Is it clear? Okay, thank you. This is the lecture material for the first week. I hope all of you will enjoy studying statistics. Thank you very much. See you next week. Goodbye.